Henry Cejudo had barely retired before he was already discussing a potential comeback, but now it appears he's closer than ever to making his return to action. As a former two-division UFC champion, Cejudo has long desired the opportunity to add a third title to his resume while targeting a showdown against reigning featherweight king Alexander Volkanovski. According to his longtime manager Ali Abdelaziz, there's no doubt that Cejudo is interested in returning, but there are certain conditions that would have to be met in order to grant him an immediate title shot at 145 pounds. Listen, Dana White is one of the greatest promoters of all time. Maybe he is the greatest, and he understands big fights, and he understands outcomes. If Henry wants to do it, and he's telling me he wants to do it, and he's willing to defend the title after he beats Alexander, right? Dana White will make this happen. But remember, if I don't think Henry will defend the title, I will not be involved, because I have a long history with Dana, and I'm never going to lie to him. Henry's an honorable guy. He would never lie. But I think right now, everybody needs to make up their mind what they want to do. I have to talk to the UFC, to Dana, to Sean Shelby, and everyone at the office and sit down with Henry face to face to see if this is what they'll really do. Of course, the UFC has faced a similar issue in the past after Georges St-Pierre came back from a 4-year-long hiatus and became middleweight champion with a third-round submission win over Michael Bisping. Prior to the fight, St-Pierre had promised that he would stay to defend the title, but after he fell ill following an intense training camp that required him to pack on a lot of weight to compete at 185 pounds, he ultimately decided to relinquish the belt. Just over a year later, St-Pierre announced his retirement from the sport of mixed martial arts. It's no secret that Cejudo wants to become the first fighter in history to hold titles in 3 different weight classes after he already conquered flyweight and bantamweight, but the possibility that he might beat Volkanovski and then just retire again has to be a concern for the UFC. UFC welterweight contender Colby Covington has slammed Jon Jones for his recent arrest, suggesting the former light heavyweight champion should never fight in the UFC again. Jones, who vacated the 205-pound gold last February in order to pursue a move up to heavyweight, found himself in the headlines for all the wrong reasons yet again in September. Just hours after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, Jon was arrested in Las Vegas. Jones was charged with battery, domestic violence, and injuring and tampering with a vehicle. The incident was made even more troubling when the initial call to the police was released and details of Jones's altercation with his fiancée came out. While Jones has vowed to fix his ways and recently provided an update on his ongoing journey to sobriety, many of his UFC peers are doubtful of his ability to change, including former interim welterweight champ Colby Covington. During an interview with MMA News' James Lynch, Colby suggested Jones will continue to partake in criminal activities. Oh my gosh, man, I'm not surprised. I mean, definitely not surprised. That guy's gonna continue to do felon-type stuff, criminal-type activities. That guy's a piece of shit, man. He's a dirtbag. I mean, beating your wife? And she's so manipulated and so messed up emotionally in the head from what he's done to her over the years, you can tell she just has trauma, so she doesn't want to rat him out. He used to bring home big money for her, so of course she wants to keep the gravy train going. She doesn't want anything to ruin their relationship. So I get where she's coming from and why it's happening, but man, that's sad, James. I mean, that's bad. That's real bad. You put your hands on a woman, you left her with marks and blood, and man, it's despicable. And it's sad that he even has a job, but I think the UFC should just milk out his career and not ever let him fight again. Because that guy shouldn't be fighting. He doesn't deserve to be in a cage. And we don't want to see him lose any more brain cells, because he's already lost it. He's completely lost it in his head, and fighting again is just gonna make him get worse. Former UFC middleweight contender Kevin Holland has announced that he will be dropping down to the welterweight division in 2022. Holland took to his social media this week to officially confirm that he is indeed dropping down to 170 pounds next year. For Holland, he has competed in the welterweight division on the regional circuit in the past, but since joining the UFC, he has only competed at 185 pounds. Holland has been in the UFC since 2018, and he has 8-4 record overall. Holland is coming off of a no contest with Kyle Daukaus in his last fight, a match that ended under controversial circumstances when an accidental clash of heads led to the stoppage. Overall, Holland is winless in his last 3 fights, after having just won 5 straight fights before that. Holland is a great fighter, but he has decided that he can't compete for a title at 185 pounds going up against the bigger, stronger wrestlers in the weight class. Holland certainly has the skills necessary to make noise at 170 pounds, especially since he will be closer in size to his opponents. The only issue is that this rematch with Daukaus won't happen now due to Holland switching weight classes, but Daukaus will likely be okay with moving on and fighting other contenders at middleweight. UFC lightweight Michael Chandler continues his campaign to fight Conor McGregor, but he's taking a different approach than most. Rather than talking trash and aggressively calling him out, Chandler has paid respect toward McGregor, not just as a showman, but as a fighter. McGregor has lost 3 of his past 4 fights since October 2018, but Chandler still views him as one of the most dangerous fighters on the roster with an unmatched striking proficiency. Chandler is on a losing skid himself, having dropped back-to-back bouts to UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira and a Fight of the Year candidate against Justin Gaethje, but he thinks both his style and McGregor's would make for a highly entertaining matchup. That left hand can put anybody out on the entire planet. I think my right hand can put anybody out on the entire planet, so I think it's a perfect fight. It's a different approach when you're fighting a guy like Conor, because fighting a guy like Gaethje, who loves to brawl, is much easier than a guy where you're really afraid to sometimes throw a punch because of the shot that you don't see coming as you're pulling your hand back. So you definitely got to be on your P's and Q's with the striking. But then the coolest thing about Conor, too, is everybody always talks about how bad of a wrestler he is, how bad of a grappler he is. Chad took him down a couple times. He got taken down a couple times in the second Diaz fight. He got taken down numerous times in other fights, and he has always kept his composure. His mental awareness, capacity, and stability inside of the octagon, inside the confines of competition, especially with how heightened the stakes and the senses are inside of his fights while everybody in the entire world is watching, is something to behold, man. He's a different level of competitor, and anybody who discredits him because he's lost fights is just either a casual or a Conor hater, to be honest with you.